We begin not with comfort, but with confrontation. You felt the pull, haven't you? That stirring in your soul that whispers, there's more to you. The world may see you as ordinary, but beneath the surface, you've always known that you were born for something greater. You're not just here to survive. You're here to lead, but not in the way the world defines leadership. You're being called to rise as a spiritual warrior leader, and that calling is not soft. It's raw. It's disruptive. It demands everything. The world is in chaos for a reason. The systems are collapsing. The masks are falling. The illusions are wearing thin. And in the middle of that collapse, there's a space being carved out for warriors of the soul to step forward. Not with swords, but with truth. Not with power over others, but with power over self. You are one of them. You've always been. The signs were there since childhood. You felt the disconnect in conversations that lacked depth. You felt the ache during moments of injustice. You felt the electric pull towards something unseen but deeply real. But stepping into this role isn't about fame, applause, or recognition. It's about responsibility, deep responsibility. Because when you say yes to your calling, you say yes to being misunderstood. You say yes to walking alone. You say yes to carrying light through darkness without needing external validation. Because the truth is, no one will crown you. You must crown yourself. You must look in the mirror and declare, I will not wait to be chosen. I choose myself.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
What does it mean to be a spiritual warrior leader? It means you lead through energy, not ego. You lead through embodiment, not performance. You lead by becoming a living example of the inner work you've done. People don't follow your words, they follow your frequency. And your frequency doesn't lie. It's forged in discipline, humility, and self-awareness. It's refined in moments of solitude where you confront your shadows and come out with wisdom instead of wounds. The journey starts in silence, in the nights where you can't sleep because your soul is speaking louder than your thoughts. In the mornings where you feel a heaviness, not from exhaustion, but from the weight of a destiny you haven't yet stepped into. And in those moments, you're not weak, you're being called. You're being summoned to remember that warriors aren't born in comfort. They're born in chaos. They're born in the fire of their own transformation. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you truly listened to your inner voice, not the one shaped by fear, but the one shaped by purpose? That voice doesn't scream. It whispers. And too often, we drown it out with noise, with distractions, with other people's dreams. But what if you stopped running from it? What if you sat still long enough to hear what your soul has been trying to say all along? To step into your role, you must first acknowledge the war within. The war between who you were taught to be and who you truly are. The war between comfort and courage, between fitting in and standing out, between pleasing others and honoring yourself. The battlefield is not outside, it's within. And until you win that inner war, you cannot lead others through theirs. Leadership without inner mastery is manipulation. But leadership rooted in soul truth, that's liberation. Many of us were trained to lead with logic, but the new leadership is energetic. It's intuitive. It's guided by something deeper than strategy. It's guided by alignment. And alignment is not always logical. Sometimes it tells you to walk away from everything secure to pursue something unseen. Sometimes it asks you to say no when everyone expects a yes. Sometimes it requires you to disappoint others in order to remain loyal to your truth. Are you willing to do that? You cannot lead if you are still addicted to being liked. You cannot lead if you are still hiding parts of yourself to make others comfortable. You cannot lead if you are still waiting for permission. A spiritual warrior doesn't wait for the world to validate them. They validate themselves through action, integrity, and presence. The moment you stop seeking external approval is the moment you begin to radiate inner authority, and that is the true marker of leadership. But let's go deeper, because leadership without shadow work is dangerous. You must face the parts of you that crave control, that fear rejection, that sabotage intimacy. You must walk into the dark corridors of your psyche and bring light there, not to destroy, but to integrate, because your power doesn't come from perfection. It comes from integration, from knowing your darkness but choosing your light, from holding your pain but not letting it define you. Have you ever looked at your wounds not as curses but as training grounds? Because that's what they are. Every heartbreak, every betrayal, every loss, it wasn't random. It was refinement. It was initiation. It was your soul being carved open so that more light could pour through. And now it's not about pretending those wounds don't exist. It's about leading from the scar, not the scab. From the healed place, not the hidden place. You don't need to know everything to lead. You just need to be real. People are not looking for perfect leaders. They're looking for embodied ones. Leaders who have walked the path. Leaders who can sit in discomfort without collapsing. Leaders who can hold space for others without needing to be the center of it. That's what makes a spiritual warrior leader different. We don't lead to control. We lead to liberate. And liberation begins with truth. Brutal, raw, soul-shaking truth. Are you willing to speak it even when your voice trembles? Are you willing to stand in it even when it costs you comfort? Are you willing to live it even when no one claps? Because that's what it takes. And if you're waiting for the right moment to begin, this is it. This is the moment. You are not too late. You are not unqualified. You are exactly who and where you need to be to begin. But beginning requires a death. The death of the identity you've outgrown. The death of the version of you that settled for survival. The death of the story that says you're not enough. And in that death, there is a rebirth, a resurrection, a remembering. You are not here to just exist. You are here to awaken. And not just for yourself, but for everyone you touch. You will be tested. Make no mistake. The moment you declare, I am a spiritual warrior, life will test that. It will put you in spaces where your truth is challenged. It will bring you people who mirror your deepest wounds. It will ask you to hold the line when everything in you wants to run. But those tests are not punishments, they are confirmations. They are showing you what needs strengthening. They are revealing the gaps in your foundation. So when they come, don't collapse. Rise. Rise with awareness. Rise with grace. Rise with the knowing that every test is shaping you into the leader you were born to be. And here's the secret no one tells you. The more you lead from your soul, the more resistance you'll face. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're doing something real. The world resists what it cannot control. But you are not here to be controlled. You are here to be a catalyst, a disruptor, or a guide. And that path is not for the faint of heart. So I ask you, what are you willing to let go of in order to rise? What illusions, what roles, what fears, what habits are you willing to release so that the real you can emerge? Because you can't lead others into their truth while still clinging to your lies. The role of the spiritual warrior leader is not just to speak truth, it's to be truth, to embody it in every breath, every choice, every moment. You will not always feel ready. That's normal. But readiness is not required, willingness is. The willingness to show up, the willingness to be seen, the willingness to fall and get back up, the willingness to be misunderstood, the willingness to walk alone until others catch up. That's what sets us apart. That's what makes us warriors. And finally, remember this: your leadership is not about you. It's about what flows through you. You are the vessel, not the source. So stay humble, stay grounded, stay connected. Let your life be a prayer. Let your presence be a sermon. Let your service be the revolution. This is not a game. This is not a trend. This is a soul contract, and it's time to fulfill it. Now that you've said yes, not just with your mouth, but with your energy, everything changes. You've crossed a threshold that can't be uncrossed. You've agreed to step into a level of responsibility that most people spend their whole lives avoiding. But this isn't about pressure. This is about power. The kind of power that doesn't shout, doesn't dominate, doesn't seek attention. It simply is. It's the kind of power that comes from alignment, from integrity, from walking so closely with your soul that your entire life becomes a reflection of your spiritual truth. The moment you step into your role as a spiritual warrior leader, you must understand one thing deeply: the world will test your embodiment, not your words. You can speak all the light you want, but if your energy doesn't match, people will feel it. You can quote sacred texts, wear crystals, burn sage, and chant mantras, but if your heart is closed, your leadership is hollow. We are not here to perform spiritual leadership. We are here to live it. We are here to become the bridge between the seen and the unseen, the pain and the healing, the chaos and the clarity. Being a spiritual warrior leader means you no longer have the luxury of avoiding your own inner work. Every wound you ignore becomes a blind spot in your leadership. Every lie you tell yourself becomes a distortion in your guidance. Every fear you refuse to face becomes a chain around your influence. The deeper you want to lead, the deeper you must be willing to go within. This is not about being fearless. It's about being honest. It's about looking yourself in the mirror and asking, where am I still hiding? Where am I still playing small? What truth am I still afraid to live out loud? This path will strip you bare. It will take everything false away from you. It will ask you to surrender your masks, your personas, your need to be liked. It will ask you to stand in the fire of your own transformation, not for applause, but because your soul demands it. And in that fire, something extraordinary happens. You burn away the illusion of who you thought you had to be. and you rise as who you truly are: raw, real, radiant. But don't think for a second that rising means escaping difficulty. No, rising means becoming unshakable in the face of difficulty. It means you stop being reactive and start being rooted. It means you hold space for chaos without becoming it. It means you see through fear without feeding it. It means you become the calm in the middle of the storm, not because the storm stops, but because you've remembered you are the storm. You are the force that is never fully seen, but always deeply felt. And here's something most people don't talk about. When you step into true spiritual leadership, you will trigger people. Not because you're trying to, just because you exist. Your presence becomes a mirror, a reflection of what others are avoiding. And when people aren't ready to meet their own truth, they will lash out at yours. They will criticize your tone, misinterpret your kindness, project their own wounds onto your clarity. And in those moments, you must remember, this is not about you. This is about resonance. This is about frequency. You're not here to be liked. You're here to awaken. You must also learn to lead without attachment. That means you don't lead to be followed. You lead because you must, because it's encoded in your being, because your silence would be a betrayal of your soul. When you lead from that place, you are free, free from the need to control, free from the need to be understood, free from the need to be anything other than what you are. But freedom comes with responsibility. You are now a lighthouse. And lighthouses don't chase ships. They stand tall, consistent, immovable. They shine regardless of the weather, regardless of who's watching, regardless of whether the ships are grateful or not. That's your role now, to shine, to hold, true to be. And yet you are still human. You still have your own grief, your own doubts, your own longings. That doesn't make you weak. That makes you real. In fact, it's your humanity that deepens your leadership. It's your ability to weep and still rise, to feel broken and still serve, to be vulnerable and still stand strong. That paradox is what makes you powerful. Because people don't need perfection. They need permission. Permission to be fully themselves. And your authenticity gives them that. Let's talk about the practical now. Because stepping into spiritual leadership isn't just about inner work. It's about how you show up in the world, how you speak, how you walk, how you listen, how you hold people, how you hold yourself. Every interaction becomes a transmission. Every decision becomes a teaching. Every moment becomes sacred. You must master your presence. That means you don't just enter a room, you enter it with intention. You don't just listen, you listen with your whole being. You don't just speak, you speak from your core, not your conditioning. You become a living embodiment of your truth. And that embodiment is what makes people trust you. Not your resume, not your followers, not your branding, your vibration. But embodiment takes practice, discipline, devotion. That's why we meditate. That's why we journal. That's why we stay in integrity with ourselves. Not because it's trendy, but because we know that in order to hold others, we must first hold ourselves. And we know that discipline doesn't restrict us, it frees us. It frees us from the chaos of unconscious living. It frees us from the slavery of reaction. It frees us to be intentional creators of our reality. And yes, you will fall. You will make mistakes. You will forget who you are. That's part of the journey. But what sets you apart is that you return. You return faster. You return deeper. You return wiser. Because you've committed not just to the light, but to the path. And the path doesn't always feel good, but it's always sacred. Let's go deeper again. Because spiritual warrior leadership is not about being in love with the light. It's about being in relationship with the whole, the dark, the shadow, the ego, the pain. You don't run from them. You make allies of them. You understand them. You integrate them. Because the more whole you are, the more powerful your leadership becomes. Fragmented leaders create confusion. Whole leaders create clarity. So ask yourself, what parts of me have I still not accepted? What emotions do I judge in others because I haven't healed them in myself? This is your work, not to fix others, but to see them clearly without the filter of your own unhealed pain. That's how you lead with compassion instead of control, with grace instead of guilt, with wisdom instead of woundedness. Remember, you are not just here to awaken yourself. You are here to activate others, and activation is not always gentle. Sometimes it's disruptive. Sometimes it shakes people. Sometimes it breaks them open. But you don't do it from ego. You do it from love. And love, real love, doesn't just comfort. It clarifies. It cuts through lies. It demands truth. You are now a messenger, a guide, a keeper of codes. And your presence carries a frequency that can shift timelines. This is not romantic. This is real. And it requires you to be deeply grounded in your humanity while being fully open to the divine. That's the balance. That's the mastery, to walk between worlds and be fully present in both. You will attract those who are ready, and you will repel those who are not. Don't take either personally. Just keep walking. Keep leading. Keep being. Your job is not to convince. Your job is to transmit. To transmit truth. To transmit power. To transmit remembrance. People are looking for something real. Something solid. Something sacred. And when they find you, they'll know. Not because of what you say, but because of what you are. Because of how they feel in your presence. That's what makes a spiritual warrior leader unforgettable, not their image, but their impact. So now I ask you again, are you truly ready to let go of who you were to become who you came here to be? Are you ready to stop playing small in a world that needs your full presence? Are you ready to lead not from perfection, but from purpose? Because if you are, then rise, not with force, but with faith. Because you are not alone. The path is ancient, the calling is divine, and the time is now. Now that we've stripped away the illusions, confronted the shadows, and chosen the path of truth, the final phase begins not as a destination, but as a deeper level of embodiment. You're no longer just awakening. You're activating. You're no longer asking for signs. You're becoming the sign. This is where the true work begins, where the real tests emerge, not just to challenge your strength, but to refine your soul into a frequency so high, so clear, that it becomes impossible to ignore. And now we don't just talk about being a leader. We live it. Every breath, every choice, every moment. As a spiritual warrior leader, your life is no longer about you, and yet it's more you than ever before. This paradox is part of the mastery. You hold space for others to rise, but you no longer lose yourself in their stories. You empathize, but you don't enable. You guide, but you don't carry. You serve, but you don't sacrifice your truth. Because the most powerful thing you can offer anyone is your vibration. And that vibration must be clear, sovereign, and rooted. You are not here to save anyone. You are here to remind them that they can save themselves. This stage of the journey is about sustainability. Anyone can have a spiritual breakthrough. Anyone can feel inspired for a week. But can you sustain your embodiment when the world forgets you? When no one thanks you? When the applause fades and you're left with nothing but your breath and your choices? Can you continue to walk your path when it's quiet, when it's quiet, when it feels like no one sees your effort? Because that is the mark of a true leader, not how they perform in the spotlight, but how they persevere in the dark. You must now become an anchor, not just for others, but for yourself. The storms will come, the world will shake, but you stay rooted. Why? Because you've already faced your own inner earthquakes. You've met your own darkness, and you didn't run. You've walked through the fire and emerged with your soul intact. And because of that, you are now a lighthouse. Not because you're perfect, but because you're present, unshakably present. And in a world addicted to distraction, your presence becomes revolutionary. There will be times when your leadership is invisible, when your actions are unseen, your sacrifices unrecognized, your wisdom unreceived. And still, you lead. Because your leadership is not about being validated. It's about being aligned. Alignment is your fuel now, not motivation, not hype, not external reward. Just alignment. You do what's right not because it's easy or popular, but because it's true. You live in integrity because your soul won't let you settle for less. And that alone makes you rare. But rare doesn't mean unreachable. In fact, the more you embody your leadership, the more approachable you become. Because you no longer need to prove anything. You no longer need to defend your truth. You simply are. And this beingness is what dissolves walls, heals hearts, and awakens minds. The world doesn't need more performers, it needs more presence, more realness, more raw, unfiltered truth that cuts through the noise and reminds people of who they really are. Let's go deeper, because now we must talk about legacy. Not the kind that's measured in followers, fame, or fortune, but the kind that's measured in impact. In the silent shifts you create in people's lives. In the way someone changes direction after hearing just one sentence from you. In the way another soul breathes easier simply because you exist. That's legacy. That's leadership. That's the ripple effect of living fully, fiercely, and authentically in your purpose. So ask yourself, what will I leave behind when I'm gone? Not just in the material world, but in the hearts of the people I've touched. What frequency will echo in the spaces I've walked through? Will the energy I carried outlive the body I wore? This is what spiritual warrior leaders think about, not because we're obsessed with death, but because we're obsessed with meaning. We don't just want to live long, we want to live deep, and living deeply requires boundaries. You are no longer available for anything that dilutes your power. You are no longer available for conversations that drain your essence. You are no longer available for connections that require you to shrink or pretend. You are no longer available for environments that keep your soul on mute. This is not arrogance. This is devotion. Devotion to your mission. Devotion to your alignment. Devotion to the version of you that your soul is dying to express. You will be judged for this. You will be misunderstood. People will call you too distant, too intense, too serious. Let them. Let them label what they do not understand. Because your job is not to be digestible. Your job is to be divine. And divinity is not always comfortable. Sometimes it's disruptive. Sometimes it's inconvenient. Sometimes it breaks people open just by existing. But that's the gift. That's the medicine. That's the reason you're here. You will not always know the next step. You will not always feel certain, but you will always have access to stillness. And stillness is your compass now. In a world of noise, stillness becomes your superpower. It's where you hear the whispers of your higher self. It's where you receive the next instruction. It's where the path unfolds not through force, but through faith. Can you trust the unseen? Can you walk even when the map disappears? Can you surrender control and still move forward? Because the greatest leaders are not the ones who know every answer. They are the ones who know how to listen to the moment, to the energy, to the divine, and then act not from impulse, but from intuition. That's how you lead now. Not from plans, but from presence. Not from fear, but from frequency. You are no longer reacting. You are creating. You are no longer chasing. You are attracting. You are no longer proving. You are being. And in your being, you will find your tribe. The ones who see you without needing explanation. The ones who feel you before you speak. The ones who rise simply because you rose. These are the ones you're meant to lead, not with force, not with hierarchy, but with resonance, with mutual remembrance, with sacred reciprocity. Together you become a field of awakening, a movement of embodiment, a revolution of realness. But even in community, you must remain sovereign. Leadership is lonely sometimes, not because no one is there, but because no one else can make your choices for you. You are the one who must keep choosing truth, keep choosing alignment, keep choosing soul over safety. And in doing so, you light the way for others to do the same. So now, let's speak to your future self, the one who has fully stepped in, the one who no longer apologizes for their power, the one who holds the frequency of unwavering truth. Can you feel them? Can you see them? Can you embody them now? Because time is not linear. The more you embody that future self now, the faster they become your present reality. Your power is not something you earn. It's something you remember. And remembering happens in the now. You are not becoming a leader. You are a leader. You are not waiting for the moment. You are the moment. And this is your time to rise, to serve, to shine. Not with ego, but with essence. Not from pressure, but from purpose. not for recognition, but for remembrance. So take a breath. Feel your body. Feel the earth beneath you. Feel the divine within you. And know this, you were born for this. Every tear, every test, every triumph, it was all preparation. You didn't come this far to question your worth. You came this far to embody your destiny. And now there is no turning back.